Welcome to the deep dive. If you've ever, looked at a garden catalog or just stared at an empty patch of soil and felt completely overwhelmed,
Uh-huh.
this is for you.
Uh-huh.
Our mission today is pretty simple. We are taking all the technical stuff, the pH, the pruning, the tools, and we are giving you the curated shortcut.
Yes.
We're debunking that myth of the magical green thumb. Success really just comes from knowing a few foundational secrets.
That's so right. We're synthesizing the absolute essentials from the sources you shared to accelerate your confidence. We're going from paralyzed by information overload to having a clear, actionable plan.
Okay.
And the very first step, it isn't about buying seeds or anything. It's about a complete mindset shift.
All right, let's unpack that. The core philosophy, the big idea that seems to underpin all gardening success is learning to stop fighting the natural world.
And start working with it.
Right.
What's fascinating here is just recognizing that nature is, well, it's fundamentally stronger. It's more complex than any process we can dream up.
So you're leveraging systems that are already running.
Exactly. I mean, nature uses billions of microbes to decompose organic matter and turn it into nutrients. That's happening whether we're there or not.
And this isn't just about plant food, right? It's about the physical structure of the soil itself.
Precisely. When those microbes do their work, they produce compounds like glomalin. Think of it as microbial superglue.
Okay.
It binds the soil particles together into what we call large aggregates. These create little channels for air and water, and the result is humus, that dark, rich stuff that makes soil act like a living sponge.
And that living sponge is the goal.
That's what you're aiming for.
So healthy soil is the foundation. And the other huge benefit of cooperating with nature is you get, well, free labor, specifically pest control.
Absolutely. The natural world is teeming with beneficial insects and animals patrolling the garden. They naturally keep pests in balance. The goal isn't annihilation.
It's control.
It's control. You want the life cycles of the good bugs to keep the bad bugs from just exploding.
The ultimate aha moment for me from the sources was about weeds. We always see them as this, malicious enemy.
Right.
But if you look at it through this lens of working with nature, you realize something fundamental.
Bare soil is unnatural. Nature abhors a vacuum. It wants to be covered.
So weeds are just nature's attempt to do that.
They're acting as natural cover crops. That's all they're doing. They protect the soil from sun, from wind, from erosion. So when we cover the soil, either with our plants or with mulch, we reduce the incentive for weeds to show up.
So the immediate takeaway for a beginner is start small to avoid getting discouraged, and just accept that gardening is an art. It's trial and error.
For sure.
But what is the single most important habit you need to build?
Observation. You have to spend time in the garden, maybe just 10 minutes a day. And the goal isn't to start working.
It's just a look.
Just look. Notice the tiny differences. A droopy leaf, a color change, a new bug. When you catch things early, your chances of success just skyrocket.
But that observation needs some structure, though. I mean, if you see a problem, you need to remember what you did last week.
And that's where the plant journal comes in. Just jotting down blooming times, when you fertilized, what you pruned. It turns those 10 minutes of observation into reliable data. It builds confidence.
Okay, so let's apply this mindset to the first physical step, location. Where do people trip up right out of the gate?
I'd say the biggest issue is convenience, or the lack of it.
Friction.
Low friction is the key to consistency. You need the garden to be accessible, easy to work in. If you're using raised beds, make them tall enough so you're not always bending over. If it's a chore to get to, you just won't go.
And accessibility means two key environmental factors. First is light. What's the rule of thumb?
You need at least 6 hours of direct sun. I mean, 8 or more is really ideal for the heavy-producing vegetables like tomatoes and peppers.
And a common mistake is just checking at noon.
Exactly. You have to check the shadows in the morning, at noon, and in the afternoon. And you have to remember that sun patterns change. That little tree might not cast a shadow in May, but it definitely will in July.
Which leads right to the second barrier.
Yeah.
Water. How far is too far from the tap?
Well, if dragging 100 feet of hose feels like a Herculean effort, you are setting yourself up to fail.
Right. You'll just skip it.
You will. Place the garden within, say, 8 to 15 meters of a tap. If you can't, then invest in a good hose reel or splitter. It's a small upfront effort that pays off all season.
And once you pick the spot, you have to think about long-term competition. That amazing soil you're building is like a buffet for tree roots.
Oh, yes. They will invade your rich, watered soil and they will steal everything. Don't put your garden right next to a mature oak tree. Keep your beds clear of those big established root systems.
And before you put a single thing in the ground, you need local intelligence. The USDA hardiness zone.
It's non-negotiable. It tells you how cold and hot your area gets, which determines what can actually survive there.
And knowing your zone helps you understand the difference between annuals and perennials.
Right. Annuals like petunias live for one season, but they give you a ton of color for a long time. Perennials, like daylilies, they come back every spring, but usually have a shorter blooming period.
And the last warning on location. Respect the calendar. Even if you're in a warm zone like 9 or 10, planting summer crops like tomatoes in November, it's just not going to work.
They'll just struggle. They need the right light and temperature cues to really thrive.
So let's shift to the actual foundation of the garden, the soil.
Because if your soil isn't right, nothing else matters. Healthy soil should be dark, crumbly, loose. It should have good drainage and be around 5% organic matter.
For anyone starting with an in-ground bed, the best advice is just to get a soil test, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's the only way to get a real baseline on your pH, your nutrients, and to flag any potential issues like heavy metals.
But you can do a quick drainage check at home.
Oh, yeah. Dig a hole about a foot deep, fill it with water twice. If it drains in 2 to 4 hours, your drainage is good.
And if it drains too slowly, which means you have that heavy clay, what's the secret to fixing it?
You amend with compost and organic matter, not sand.
Right.
That's a huge beginner mistake. Adding sand to clay just makes something like concrete. It's awful. Always use high-quality compost to open up that structure.
Okay, so let's talk about building that health.
Yeah.
The sources pointed to 3 key ways. Let's start with the simplest.
First is just incorporating compost. Kitchen scraps, leaves, grass clippings. This is the slow and steady year after year feeding that keeps the biome happy.
Second is manure. It's incredibly rich, but there's a huge caution here that needs to be highlighted.
This is a big risk. Manure has to come from a trusted source. You have to be so wary of persistent herbicides, specifically one called aminopyralid.
What does that do?
It's designed to kill broadleaf weeds in pastures, but it can pass completely intact through a cow or a horse. If you use that contaminated manure, it will wipe out most of your garden, especially tomatoes, beans, potatoes.
So if you don't know the source, just don't use it. And even with a trusted source, what about fresh manure?
It's too hot, way too high in nitrogen. It'll burn your plants. It has to be stacked and aged or composted for about a year before it's safe.
And the third method is the compost pit, or trench. This sounds like a great low-effort entry point.
It really is. You just dig a hole, throw in your kitchen scraps, and cover it up. You're creating this pocket of amazing fertility underground.
And then you plant on top of it.
You plant heavy feeders, like squash or beans, right on top of that spot later in the season, and they just take off. It's like a built-in fertilizer pack.
Now on to the power of mulch. This is just non-negotiable for success.
It is. It keeps weeds down, moderates soil temperature, and conserves moisture, which means you water less. You need at least 2 to 4 centimeters, but 5 to 10 is even better.
But there's a crucial application technique here.
Yes. Always keep the mulch a few centimeters away from plant stems or tree trunks. If it's piled up right against the stem, it traps moisture and invites rot.
Okay, let's run through the 4 essential mulch types from the sources. What's the best for long-term weed blocking?
Old wheat straw. It breaks down slowly, and it's a great soil amendment over time. But a key point, use straw, not hay.
Why?
Hay is cut grass for animals, and it carries a really high risk of both weed seeds and those persistent herbicides we just talked about.
Got it. And for annual veggie beds where you actually want the mulch to break down quickly?
Shredded hardwood bark. Look for stuff that's double or triple shredded. It's finer, so it decomposes in just a few months, which is perfect for a bed you're going to turn over next season.
For containers or beds right against the house, you need something that resists rot.
That's where you use things like cypress, cedar, or redwood. Their natural oils resist rot and termites, so they're great where you need that longevity and moisture retention.
And finally, the specialized situational mulch. Pine bark nuggets.
Yeah, this is your pH adjuster. Pine bark is naturally acidic, so it's perfect for plants that love a low pH, like blueberries. They thrive around a pH of 4 to 5.
And tomatoes.
You can use it around tomatoes and peppers, too. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence that a slightly acidic soil around 6.5 really improves their flavor.
So let's talk about why mulching in the fall and winter is so critical, It's not just for summer.
The reasons are totally different. First, it's major weed prevention. A thick layer stops all those airborne weed seeds from landing on your soil and just waiting for spring.
And second, it's insulation.
It keeps the roots warmer, sure, but it also prevents the bare soil from heating up too quickly on a warm day in, say, February.
So it stops the plant from waking up too early.
Exactly. If the soil heats up, the plant breaks dormancy, and then it's incredibly vulnerable to a late frost. Mulch is that buffer.
And the third reason circles all the way back to our foundation, the microbiome.
That's right. Leaving your soil bare all winter exposes that living soil, the fungal networks, everything, to months of sterilizing UV rays from the sun. Mulch is like sunscreen for your soil.
Okay, let's move from the foundation to core techniques, starting with watering. The principle is deep and infrequent.
Water only when the top 3 to 5 inches are dry. This forces the roots to chase the moisture downward, training them to grow deep, maybe 15 to 20 centimeters.
Which makes them drought resistant.
Highly drought resistant. This is especially key for root crops, like carrots.
And we also need to practice spot watering. This seems like a game changer for weed control.
It is. Spot watering just means you only water the base of the plant. This conserves water, of course, but more importantly, it keeps the surface soil dry.
Where the weed seeds are.
Exactly. No water, no germination. It also prevents water from splashing on the leaves, which is how diseases like blight and powdery mildew spread.
What if a heat wave hits and you have to water during the day? What's the emergency procedure?
You have to do it slowly. The goal is to protect the rhizosphere, that critical zone of root life. If you dump cold water on super hot soil, you can shock it.
So what do you do?
Dampen the top inch first to cool the surface. Then water slowly so the water has time to cool down before it hits that sensitive root zone.
All right, let's talk tools. We don't need a whole shed full of stuff, but we need the right stuff. What's the beginner's trinity?
First, a quality pair of bypass pruners. This will be your most used tool. It has to feel comfortable, and you have to keep it sharp. Dull pruners crush stems and invite disease.
Second, my personal favorite, the hori-hori trowel.
It's the best, isn't it? It's a digging tool, a slicer, a weeder. It has a depth meter on it, a serrated edge for cutting roots. It replaces like 3 other tools.
And the third is your adjustable hose nozzle, which ties back to observation.
It does. Hand watering with a good nozzle is the perfect excuse to spend that 10 minutes in the garden every day. You will spot pests and problems you would totally miss with automatic irrigation.
As we scale up, we need a shovel. Round point or flathead?
For digging, you want the round point shovel. It's the most versatile. Flathead shovels are for moving material, not for breaking ground. You also need a heavy-duty bow rake for spreading compost and mulch.
And for moving that chunky mulch, what's the most efficient tool?
Get a manure or ensilage fork, one with about 10 tines. It's designed to stab and move bulky material like wood chips or straw into a wheelbarrow without breaking your back.
And for that wheelbarrow, you recommend a specific type.
Yeah, if you can, get a heavy-duty model with 2 front wheels. The stability is so much better than the single-wheel kind. It prevents the whole thing from tipping when you're dumping a heavy load.
Now, for the most intimidating topic for beginners, pruning. Let's demystify this. What are the simple goals?
You're trying to do 3 things. 1, remove dead or diseased wood. 2, remove branches that cross and rub against each other. And 3, open the center of the plant for light and airflow.
Airflow prevents disease.
Grammatically.
Okay, we have 4 essential cuts. Let's start with the most common 2. First, the heading cut. What's that for?
A heading cut promotes density. You're removing a top portion of a branch, cutting it back to a bud. Specifically, about a 1/4 inch above the bud at a 45-degree angle.
And that encourages thicker growth.
It redirects the plant's energy to that bud, making it grow bushier, which is what you want for more flowers and fruit.
And what about a thinning cut?
A thinning cut reduces density. You're removing an entire branch right back to where it meets the main stem, just outside the enlarged branch collar.
That swollen ring at the base.
Right. You must not cut into the collar, but you also can't leave a long stub. Both invite rot and disease.
Then we have the re-leadering cut for managing the size of a tree.
This is how you reduce height. You cut a main branch back to a strong side branch, one that's at least 1/3 of the diameter of the main one. This makes the side branch the new leader and slows the whole plant's upward growth.
And finally, the safety cut for big branches, the jump cut. Why is it a 3-step process?
Because if you just try to cut a heavy branch in one go, its weight will cause it to fall before the cut is finished, tearing a huge strip of bark down the trunk.
A wound that won't heal.
Exactly. So the jump cut uses 2 preliminary cuts to remove most of the weight first. Then you can make the final, clean cut right at the branch collar without any tearing.
Shifting to final tips on plant selection. We have to talk about thinning. Why is this so critical with something like beets?
Beets are a special case. What looks like one beet seed in the packet is actually a compound seed with multiple seeds inside.
So you'll get several plants in one spot.
You will. And if you don't thin them, you'll have 3 or 4 beet roots all competing, and they'll all end up tiny and useless. You have to be ruthless when you thin your beets.
Finally, let's touch on native plants. For low-friction gardening, this seems like a huge advantage.
They're the ultimate low-maintenance choice. They are already adapted to your climate, your soil. So they need less water, less care, and they're way better at resisting local pests and diseases.
But there's a big caution about sourcing the seeds.
A huge one. Be really cautious with those generic wildflower seed mixes. They often contain non-native or even invasive species.
So where do you get them?
Source your seeds from local native plant societies or specialized nurseries. They know your specific ecosystem.
And if you do want to start a wildflower garden, you have to basically ignore everything we just said about building healthy soil.
Yes. It's so counterintuitive. Wildflowers prefer low fertility. Do not add compost or manure. Rich soil just favors aggressive weeds, which will completely outcompete your wildflowers.
Site prep is everything.
You have to remove all the existing grass and weeds first, maybe even smother the area for a full season before you sow.
And that first year requires some weird maintenance.
It does. You'll do 1 or 2 high mowing cuts, maybe 10 to 15 centimeters high, just to chop the heads off the fast-growing annual weeds.
So they don't shade out the slower wildflowers.
Exactly. It seems destructive, but it's essential for getting them established.
Let's wrap up with basic pest control. Integrated pest management, or IPM, always starts with prevention. But when pests do show up, what's the first physical control to try?
Water pressure. For soft-bodied pests like aphids, just blast them off the undersides of leaves with a strong jet of water from your hose. It physically rips their little mouth parts right out of the leaf tissue.
And if you're taking cuttings, you can use home remedies instead of chemicals to prevent fungus.
For sure. Instead of a chemical rooting hormone, just try dipping the cut end in a little honey or cinnamon powder. They have natural antifungal properties.
And if you're really stumped,
Ask a local, an experienced gardener, your local county extension office. They have the regional knowledge that a book or a website just can't provide.
this has been a complete journey. We started with that philosophical shift, the importance of observation, of working with nature. Then we went through preparing the soil as the bedrock, and finally, selecting the right tools and techniques, like spot watering and winter mulching.
We covered how to build that confidence by starting small and just focusing on what you see, and how every technique, from encouraging glomalin in the soil to making a proper jump cut, is really a lesson in how natural systems work.
We started by talking about how hand watering forces us to observe the garden. Let's consider the deeper connection in the source material. How gardening, by making us work with these systems from the microscopic biome to the macro level of the seasons, teaches us how to live together with the rest of existence, rather than against it.
So as you look at your plants today, what's the subtle sign your garden is giving you right now? What does that one observation teach you? Not just about your plant's health, but about your place in this wider, more complex system. Go try that 10-minute observation rule today.